Indonesia Air Asia Flight 8501 was cruising high above the Java Sea with 156 passengers on board when suddenly the aircraft rolled sharply to the left. It didn't correct itself. The plane seemed to have a mind of its own, climbing higher and higher as the pilots struggled to regain control. Then, without warning, it began to drop. The aircraft was plummeting toward the sea below, and it appeared there was nothing the pilots could do to stop it. This is a story of human error, training deficiencies, and miscommunication. The tragic fate of Indonesia Air Asia Flight 8501. On December 25, 2014, a passenger flight was scheduled to depart from Surabaya, Indonesia, heading to Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. The aircraft was an Airbus A320, 6 years old, with approximately 23,000 flight hours. As the crew prepared for departure, an unexpected error message appeared on the aircraft's electronic centralized aircraft monitoring system. The captain returned the aircraft to the parking bay and reported the issue to maintenance. A technician arrived at the cockpit to diagnose the problem. After consulting the troubleshooting manual, the engineer reset the circuit breakers for both flight augmentation computers and ran a built-in test, which temporarily resolved the issue. The flight augmentation computers on an Airbus control critical stability functions, including inputs to the rudder, rudder trim, and yaw damper. During their discussion, the captain asked if he could perform the reset himself should the problem arise again. The technician confirmed that the reset could be performed when prompted by ECAM. With the issue seemingly resolved, the aircraft was cleared for departure. However, during pushback and after engine startup, the same error message reappeared. The pilots executed the prescribed ECAM procedure, but the problem persisted. The engineer advised the captain to return the aircraft to the gate for further checks, warning that the fix might take some time. Further investigation led the maintenance team to replace one of the flight augmentation computers. After verifying that the error message did not return upon engine startup, the captain was satisfied, and the aircraft departed without further issues. Unbeknownst to the maintenance team, the real problem lay elsewhere. The fault was in the rudder travel limiter unit, caused by cracked solder joints in the circuit boards. These cracks likely formed due to temperature fluctuations and power cycles, leading to intermittent failures. Though the new flight augmentation computer seemed to fix the issue, the underlying problem remained, setting the stage for disaster. 3 days later, on December 28, Indonesia Air Asia Flight 8501 was preparing for departure from Surabaya's Juanda International Airport bound for Singapore's Changi Airport. The same Airbus A320 was now being piloted by 53-year-old Captain Irianto, a seasoned aviator with over 20,000 flight hours, and 46-year-old First Officer Remy Emmanuel Plessel, who had accumulated over 2,000 hours of experience. Before takeoff, the pilots reviewed weather conditions along the route. Thunderstorms and towering cumulonimbus clouds were present, with cloud tops reaching up to 44,000 feet. Winds were steady at 15 to 20 knots, and temperatures at cruising altitude ranged between -56 degrees Celsius and -62 degrees Celsius. Anticipating turbulence, the first officer engaged the aircraft's anti-icing system to prevent ice formation on the wings and engines. Flight 8501 took off at 5:35 a.m. local time and climbed to its assigned cruising altitude of 32,000 feet. About half an hour into the flight, the aircraft was flying above the Java Sea when the master caution light illuminated. The same ECAM message that had troubled the aircraft 3 days earlier had returned, this time mid-flight. Following standard procedure, the first officer executed the required actions, resetting the flight augmentation computers. The rudder travel limiter units resumed normal function. However, the issue reappeared 3 more times in rapid succession. Each time the warning reappeared, the pilots followed the ECAM checklist and reset the system. But when the warning came back for the 4th time, the captain decided to try something different. He recalled seeing the maintenance technician reset the circuit breakers on the ground. Though the Airbus flight manual did not list this procedure as an approved action, the captain believed it might resolve the issue permanently. 54 seconds after the fourth warning, the captain manually reset the circuit breakers for the flight augmentation computers. This action immediately caused a cascade of failures. The autopilot disengaged, the aircraft's control logic shifted to alternate law, and the rudder deflected 2 degrees to the left. The plane began an uncommanded roll to a steep 54-degree bank angle. Distracted by multiple ECAM messages, neither pilot noticed the roll. When the first officer finally took control, he instinctively pulled back on the stick while rolling the aircraft to the right. This momentary correction reduced the bank angle, but the aircraft then rolled back to the left. Disoriented, the first officer continued to pull back on the control stick, causing the aircraft to pitch upward. The climb rate spiked to an alarming 11,000 feet per minute. As the aircraft climbed steeply, its airspeed rapidly decreased. The stall warning blared in the cockpit, but the pilots failed to recognize what was happening. The captain, noticing the abnormal climb, shouted at the first officer to pull down, an ambiguous and confusing command. The first officer continued to pull back on the control stick, further exacerbating the problem. The aircraft reached 38,000 feet before reaching a critical angle of attack. Without enough airflow over the wings, lift was lost and the aircraft stalled. The nose dropped, and Flight 8501 began an uncontrolled descent, plummeting toward the Java Sea at a terrifying rate of up to 20,000 feet per minute. As the aircraft fell, the captain and first officer fought desperately to regain control. However, their simultaneous inputs on the control sticks resulted in conflicting commands. The Airbus system, which averages pilot inputs when both sticks are moved simultaneously, interpreted this as continued nose-up input, preventing a stall recovery. The Java Sea was approaching rapidly. At 6:20 a.m., Flight 8501 crashed into the water, disintegrating on impact. All 162 people on board perished. Search and recovery efforts were launched immediately. Within days, wreckage and bodies were located floating in the Java Sea. Eventually, the aircraft's black boxes were recovered, allowing investigators to piece together the tragic chain of events. The final report concluded that a combination of factors led to the crash. The initial fault was caused by cracked solder joints in the rudder travel limiter unit, leading to repeated ECAM warnings. The captain's decision to reset the flight augmentation computer circuit breakers mid-flight resulted in an electrical interruption that caused the aircraft to roll unexpectedly. The pilot's inadequate training in high-altitude stall recovery, combined with poor communication, sealed the aircraft's fate. The disaster highlighted critical training gaps. The extreme stall angle of 40 degrees was beyond what airline pilots were trained to handle, making recovery nearly impossible. The incident underscored the need for better pilot training in handling high-altitude upsets and stall situations. Indonesia AirAsia Flight 8501 serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of human error and procedural deviations. While aircraft systems are designed with redundancies, improper troubleshooting in the cockpit can have catastrophic consequences. The tragedy led to changes in pilot training, emphasizing better communication, decision-making, and understanding of aircraft automation. In aviation, small errors can compound into deadly situations. The story of Flight 8501 is a sobering lesson that even in modern air travel, vigilance, training, and adherence to proper procedures are crucial to ensuring passenger safety.